Okay, good afternoon. I'll start. I sent in a paper of about 10 pages and then I tried to shorten it and the outcome was 14 slides. So probably I'll show 4 or 5 of them, but let's see. First, before I forget, I'd like to mention in your presentation one name which could have been mentioned as well as the others is Lauri Rauhala, a Finnish existential phenomenologist. And he even wrote a book of meditation as a marginal book of his production, but anyway. Yeah, that's what I intended to say. Let's forget about that. But I'll come to the different things. My mission has been for about, let's say, over 30 years. I've been searching of the kind of education that would support a young person's spiritual and ethical growth towards responsible humanity, which is the goal of education as I see it. And education with such ethical goals leads to fundamental ethical applications also for the educator and his educational actions. And I made my dissertation on this, on searching the philosophy of Lauri Rauhala as well as Viktor Frankl, and combined their conceptions of the human being, and also implemented all that in practical youth education, specifically education of adolescents who suffer from violence, so who are acting themselves violently. And as I see it, a conscious concept of the human being is as much ethically as it is ontologically foundational in such education and in education overall, as I see it. Here is, it took me about 10 years to draw this picture. I had some thousands of pictures earlier and I dropped them off, every one of them, and then I got an intuition, an aha experience, and that was it. And I'm still happy with that, satisfied with that. Rauhala tells that his holistic concept, his philosophical holistic concept of the human being is well grounded, and that is a fact. So he sees the connection, for instance, between the man and the surroundings. So one of his last book is called Man in Culture, Culture in Man. His holistic conception is based on the philosophies of Edmund Husserl and Martin Heidegger, as well as Max Scheler and Nikolai Hartmann. So everything is behind, but that is unique, his own conception of the human being. So it cannot be found on the philosophies of those other thinkers as such. And in our consciousness there is a lower psychic level and a higher spiritual level. And in our physicality we have, for instance, our brains, and there is no consciousness in brains, as all philosophers may know. And hopefully all other people in the world also don't believe in that, what some try to manipulate us to. Yeah, and this situationality, that is the part of the world toward which we are in relationships all the time. So everything in the world, but that part which is known for us, or what we have been, what we have met in our personal lives, or what has come familiar to us. And consciousness is the main channel in educational influencing, and the higher dimension of consciousness, the spiritual abilities and their strength is crucial. And Viktor Frankl, on his part, defines several spiritual skills that serve as helpful tools for practical youth education in life skills. Then there is something about those thinkers who have recognized already a child as a spiritual person, Beda Vicky, Janusz Korczak, and Ellen Key, a Swedish philosopher. And Heikki Ikäheimo talks about, Hegel talked about this, and Axel Honneth, Heikki Ikäheimo has his own theory of recognitive attitudes. I have then developed my own grounded on that. And he talks about recognitive attitudes of respect, love, and esteem. So respect and esteem are two very different things. And but I just explain respect and come to love then a little bit more also to pedagogical love. So respecting a young person means believing in, trusting in the young person's possibilities of growing and developing into a responsible personality according to their concealed individual potentials. Whereas the recognitive attitude of respect makes us persons in the first place, the recognitive attitude of love is something that makes us, our lives as persons, better in various ways. And Simo Skinnari, in his phenomenology of education called Pedagogical Love, there is a book of him also with that same name in Finnish, depicts educational goals in light of Plato's values through loving education and ethicality of will compared with goodness, aesthetic character of motion compared with beauty, and empathy compared with beauty or actually love, and voraciousness of thought compared with truth can grow in a young person. In an education that is based on pedagogical love and that is based on these mentioned recognitive attitudes, which are kind of the second basis after the holistic conception of man. Then comes the recognition, the recognitive attitudes, as a second basis of education that is needed in order to fulfill it in an ethical way. And such education that results also to the ethical existence of the young person. So some words about educational or pedagogical love, the purpose of love in education. Frankl explains that love is an intentional act that is directed to the extraordinary and unique being of the loved one as a spiritual person, to his spiritual core and his most intimate innermost. Max Scheler, who actually was the thinker that inspired Frankl and from whom Frankl adopted his thoughts on love, says that love is a spiritual move towards the highest possible value of the loved one. And loved one here is, as love is understood here, it's not an emotion or something like that. It is a spiritual thing, and so we can love and we ought to love our pupils, our students, those persons that are actually participating in the process of education with us. That was actually here in Janusz Korczak's thought, a child as a co-magician in performing miracles in education, and that is based on love, educational love. So through educational love, we do not see the young person as she is, but also as what she could be and what we think would be possible for her to come. Educational love, when understood as seeing the adolescent as a spiritual person, that is her genuine being and the possibilities created by values in her, helps them to actualize all the values that love has and that only love can make visible. So through or with educational love, we can see actually those values in the adolescence that she doesn't realize at all. We see that there are potential values, and the highest values that are in her we see in the act of love. According to Frankl, Frankl talks about searching for meaning and purpose in life, and here meaningful life is seen as the goal of education. Meaningfulness as directedness towards values, and the result of that, the outcome of that, is happiness. The automatic side effect, as Viktor Frankl puts it down. So searching for meaning and purpose in life means being directed towards the value potential that is reserved for each individual human being. Everything that can be seen as a potential meaning must be valuable, and when something valuable has actualized, meaningfulness can also be experienced. The question is about directness towards such values which are related to objective values. So the question is about Scheler's theory of objective values, which theory as such Frankl adopted from him, but then he created his own theory on that, as will be shown later. So the essence of values is their validity irrespective of the time and place. Compare with Plato and with Skinner, who told something about that. Oh, there's something has dropped away. The formulation is not okay. Well, never mind. But anyway, values are independent. These objective values that Scheler talks about in his theory are independent on both individual humans' subjective valuation and the prevailing valuations in single societies and cultures. So, and using these as educational tools, I show it very shortly. I don't know, do I have 1 minute or two? 2 minutes, yeah, great. So I'll put this in slideshare.net. These slides, please look there. And in academia.edu, I'll put that paper. So you can complete things from there. But I suggest that this philosophical principles can be used as basis of practical education. And that is what I have done, what I did for 20 years here in Finland in an organization, youth education organization. And then something that I suggest, if you are in this value structure, is in this hierarchy, if you are interested in Scheler and if you know Finnish, then look at the dissertation of Ulla Solasaari, the best expert of Scheler's philosophy in Finland. And she uses in her practical work as a teacher and headmaster, she uses this in educating the pupils in the school from even 3rd to 4th grade in the preliminary school. And okay, then Frankl has 3 routes to discover meaning, and he argues that through these routes you can find something valuable in your life, and creating a work or doing a deed in order to be able to direct herself towards spiritual values and their goals, experiencing values as goodness, truth and beauty, for instance, via nature or culture, or by encountering another human being in the very uniqueness of this person, that is by loving her, and then taking a brave, courageous and dignified stance to one's predicament in case she must face a fate which she cannot change, a stance which allows a steadfast bearing of laws of faith. In the concentration camp during the World War II, he experienced this or used this 3rd route to meanings and values. And then there is finally Scheler's Ordo Amoris. And I just say that in the presentation of Markku in the beginning of the day, the answer of everything is Ordo Amoris. So if you want to study it, please do. Start, if you can Finnish, start with Ulla Solasaari. If you can English or German, read Scheler's original article, and then different papers that or books that interpreted it. It was an unfinished manuscript, and so it is not so clear what he meant with Ordo Amoris. But as I thought all the time when I followed Markku's presentation, I saw in all corners the image of and the concept of Ordo Amoris as the answer. Just finally, whoever has the Ordo Amoris of a man, let's see, the Ordo Amoris is the order or ordering of love, things that one loves in his life and separates from individual to individual. And we all perceive the world through our personal Ordo Amoris. So that comes first, then comes the Frankl's roots to meanings and etc. So whoever has the Ordo Amoris of a man has the man himself. He has for the man as a moral subject what the crystallization formula is for a crystal. He sees through him as far as one possibly can. He sees before him the constant, simple and basic lines of his heart running beneath all his empirical many-sidedness and complexity. And heart deserves to be called the core of man as a spiritual being much more than knowing and willing do. Thank you.